Today, we're diving into the marketing hits, misses, and aha moments that only come from being in the trenches, and we're doing it with someone who's lived through it. Listen, this is where experience meets insight and where real lessons reshape the way you lead. Are you ready? I know you are, so let's get into it. Welcome back to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast, where bold ideas meet practical leadership. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton, and today we're unpacking the hard earned marketing wisdom of Richard. Listen, I can't wait till you meet him because he's going to talk to us about lessons that are forged through the reinvention, the innovation, and a career spent navigating the shifting tides of consumer behavior. Now, listen, I know that this podcast episode is going to inspire you. It's going to help you to lead with more clarity. It's going to spark transformation in your journey. So, right now, I want you to share. Go ahead, hit follow, like, subscribe, and share this episode right now with at least 3 leaders who are in your network. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Richard. Richard is the founder and the CEO of Sofera Marketing. With a wealth of experience in driving commercial success across the globe, he has extensive experience of building and enhancing brands through every marketing channel. He has led high performing teams in the UK and MEA and North America and illuminous companies such as GE, Santander, and First National and MoneyGram. I can't wait for you to meet him. Are you ready? Richard, welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and secondly, that was a rather remarkable welcome. So thank you very much. Feel very
You're
humbled to be here.
so welcome. So welcome. So listen, Richard, your path
Mm,
through the marketing world has been defined by constant evolution, right?
mm, mm.
Decisions that you had to make that were grounded in insight, moments that spark transformation, lessons that shape not just campaigns, but leadership itself. So I want to start
Mm.
off by asking you this question. As you look back on your experience, what's the biggest marketing shift you've seen over the past 20 years? And how did it change the way businesses connect with customers?
Gosh, that's a big question to start with, but let's unpack it. Do you know
Yes.
when I first started in marketing,
Mhm.
the way we would measure the success of a campaign is say it went out in a magazine, is you'd
Mhm.
have a little code, and then we'd say ring in, and when you ring in, please quote code 123, and we would tick, oh, someone's quoted the code. That meant they've responded to our advert.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was literally that unsophisticated, although it didn't feel like it at the time.
Mhm.
Now, fast forward a number of years, of course, we are. The user journey, the customer journey has become far more messy because we've had
Yes.
this thing called the internet come in, and the idea of this very linear sort of awareness, and then we have consideration, and then we buy, and then we recommend. It doesn't really work like that. I
Mhm.
think that's a sort of model textbook way of looking at it. In reality, we might go backwards, we might come forward, we might hesitate. If it's a
Mhm.
big decision, we might defer it.
Mhm.
Our needs and our wants change. So what we want one year might be very different from what we wanted the previous year. So there's all this understanding of the complexity that goes into what the customer wants and therefore how they respond to our communication. I
Mhm.
think another thing I've noticed is a real power. I mean, it's probably always been there, but the power of word of mouth and individual recommendation. And we've seen that through websites such as sort of Trustpilot or TripAdvisor, where the
Mhm.
world is suddenly very democratic. Because if I stay in a hotel and I don't like my stay, I can publish that, and various people can tick it and say, I found this really helpful. And then they might tell other people, hey, I saw this review, do or don't stay there. So
Mhm. It's
where
true.
I think Yeah, I mean, where the power used to be with the big brands, every customer now has a mobile phone, a camera, a voice, an opinion, and an
Mm,
ability to broadcast it. And I think that's an enormous change from where we started
mhm,
in this industry. And that's even before we get on to AI. We've
mm.
been going about 5 minutes and we've yet to mention AI. So let's bring it in. Otherwise, everyone's going to be saying, why are they not talking about that? That will
Yeah.
produce another transformation, quite honestly, a
Mhm,
huge transformation that I don't think we're really understanding yet as an industry. I think we're figuring our way through what that may mean. But
mm.
certainly the complexity of the customer journey and the power that the customer has,
It's huge.
far greater now than what it was when I first started.
Yeah, absolutely. This is so relevant. And, to all of our listeners and our viewers right now, we want to invite you to go ahead in the chat. Like, how have you seen the
Mm,
changes? What changes are you noticing? One change that I have noticed, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I've noticed how we have went from
mm,
scarcity of content to overload of content, right? Previously, like you mentioned, we had to depend on reporters, we had to depend on brands, we had to depend on
mm.
what was being fed to us. Now, like literally with the internet and Google and all these searches,
Yeah.
you don't have to depend on anybody to tell you. You can go and research it by yourself and figure it out. I'm a pastor, right? And it's the funniest thing. Not it's really not funny, but the funniest thing because I was with the group the other day saying how like you're standing up there and you're giving a sermon and you can say, Jeremiah 14:22 says, and while you're talking it, somebody's on their phone
Mm,
looking.
mm.
Jeremiah to really say that. They're researching to see whether or not you're telling the truth or not. And so, when we look at marketing, like our consumers, they have an overload of content. No longer can you think that you're the only one
Mm,
that
mm,
is selling that product. No, they're looking to see, are there other competitors that are selling that same product? What price are they selling it for? Is it the same quality? So I think that's another one that we've seen that has been changing over the years. Yeah.
you're 100% correct. The volume of user generated content, UGC as people call it, is huge. I mean, literally, if you went into Starbucks today and had a bad experience, you could get on your phone, video what's happened, and
Literally.
broadcast it. I mean, literally, within 2 minutes of that experience happening, in
Yes.
theory, the world will know about it. Also, it's really interesting because we sort of live in a world of enlightenment, yet somehow we've never been less enlightened. I mean, and what I mean by that is you have this thing called the internet, which you touched on, which you
Hmm.
can, I could download within about 3 minutes every book written by William Shakespeare. I have to say that because I'm English, so therefore, one of our heroes from yesteryear. But I,
Yes.
I could download Shakespeare now in
Hmm.
3 minutes. That, when I was growing up, if you wanted to read Othello, you would have to find a bookshop, probably a specialist bookshop, go there, travel, hope they had it in stock, buy it, come back, etc., etc. Now I can download it within a couple of minutes or get it delivered to my house this evening or tomorrow morning. So that ability of the customer to that area of enlightenment where we have the ability to see, to your point about people, when you're standing up in front of a congregation and people are checking the information is incredibly valid. On the other
Hmm.
hand, we seem to live in an era where people don't know what they're being told is true, where
I
there's
see.
different angles, there's
Yes.
different people presenting very, very different versions of the truth. And in
Yes.
marketing, it's the same, right? I mean, we're here to sell ultimately, and therefore, what is the truth? So when I
Mm-hmm.
grew up,
Mm-hmm.
years ago, we would have an advert for Mars, and the famous line was, Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play. But you couldn't say that now about Mars because it would be, but also, it's not very healthy and all the other kind of stuff that comes with Mars that they sort of left out. So
Mm-hmm.
if you now Google, is a Mars bar good for you? You're going to have about 70 different opinions within 1 second thrown at you. So how,
Mm-hmm.
as a customer, do you work your way around that universal truth? And I think it's the brands like Apple
Mm-hmm.
that keep that remarkably good quality of product, that remarkable consistency. You
Mhm,
go into a store where you live in a different country or continent potentially to where I live, And I
Mhm.
guarantee the experience you get in the Apple store will be virtually identical. And it's
Yes.
those brands because then everyone's saying the same story. And
Yes.
there's a lesson there.
Yes, yes. And so that brings me to this, right? We're talking about brand promises. Proof
Mm,
through experience. In the past, brands
yeah,
could tell people who they
yeah.
were. Now they have to prove it, right? It's as
Mm,
people are living it. And I'll be honest, I'm one of those, like when I'm going to choose a hotel, I'm going to try to decide what restaurant I want to go to that I haven't been to. I'm going to look at the reviews. I want to hear what, and I'm looking for honest reviews. Don't just write, oh, everything was wonderful. No, no. Tell me
yeah.
what was wonderful, right? It's that lived experience that people are looking for. So let me ask you this, right? What marketing strategy or trend
Mm.
seemed unstoppable at the time, but didn't stand the test of time?
That's a very, very sort of good and deep question, I think. Well, what seemed unstoppable at the time, um, definitely the fact that um, people wanted people's perception of convenience has not stood the test of time. So let me give an example of what I mean by that. I have two daughters. They're 13 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
If they want food, let's just go back to when I was growing up. If I wanted fast food,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to get into a car. I'd have to park my car. I'd
Yes.
have to get into a restaurant, let's say, McDonald's, let's just say,
Yes.
and then I would order and then I would eat it probably in the restaurant, right? So that was how we did things, right? And then we
Yes.
said, this isn't convenient enough for us. So the
Mm-hmm.
drive-through came in. And that
Mm-hmm.
was remarkable because what the drive-through meant was I didn't need to leave my car. And
Mm-hmm.
this was a transformation. This was a new way of marketing, which is
Yes.
brilliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the third phase of that, so that seemed unstoppable. We're going to have drive-throughs everywhere.
Yes.
But then the customer becoming increasingly time poor, increasingly demanding, said, that's not enough for me. What I want is I want to order it from my house, and I
Mm-hmm.
expect within 30 minutes, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to have it. Okay.
Yes.
So that's a whole thing for them to go somewhere to, I want it now while I'm sitting on the sofa watching Downton
Mm-hmm.
Abbey or whatever your tasting
Mm-hmm.
television programs are. So have a look at how that has evolved. The other thing that has evolved in that fast food industry, which I always find is a really interesting one, is how they have brought together. And the idea was you would go to a counter and organize it, and there'd be people cooking it behind you, and that was the marketing strategy. That then people like McDonald's, a great marketing organization, whatever one thinks of the goodness or badness of the product,
Mm-hmm.
they brought in these screens where you would then start typing in what you want. And do you know the average order in McDonald's has gone up in value for about 30% since they brought in the
Really?
screens, right? And then you would say to me, well, why would that be? Well, why is it that ordering one way to a machine is better from a
Mm.
revenue point of view than to a person? And the answer when they started it was quite simple, was that if I went into McDonald's and I said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I want 3 Big Macs, I had the fear of judgment that the person behind the counter might look at me and go, "Oh, you're not very healthy, are you?" Or whatever judgment they're going to come to. But if I
Uh,
put it into a screen, I can avoid the shaming. So then that
wow.
starts becoming interesting. And so, there's all these things at play that we almost don't realize are
Mm,
happening in front of us.
mm,
And that's a great use, incidentally, of technology coming in to make
mhm,
an experience better and quicker
mm,
than technology for the sake of technology,
mhm.
which is a danger as we all bring it in and we will have iPads and we want stores to be very interactive. Here we have a way of cutting down queues, increasing how much people order, speeding up the process. So again, it's a trend that everything is evolving all the time. And you wonder where it will be in sort of 5 years' time as well. One marketing strategy that seemed very unstoppable, I have to say, is because it always amuses me,
Yes.
is when the internet came in, is people did not want the internet on their phones, right? When the iPhone was first tested, people were like, no, 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 no. I have the internet at home. Why on
Mercy.
earth, why on earth would I want it on my phone? And that seemed quite an unstoppable and logical point of view. Well, that hasn't quite
Mercy.
worked out. World has gone.
Mercy.
Yeah, it's gone. That
Wow,
strategy. The strategy of
that
saying
is
to
gone.
people, yeah, turn off, don't worry about it. It will still be there when you get home. That's gone. That's gone.
And now people now if you have it on your phone and it's moving slow, it's a problem. Like people want it with them mobile, like everywhere they go to be able to,
Ah.
it really. I don't know if this is because of COVID or not, but things have really changed where the internet, having that access, people are building their communities online more so than doing it face to face. That's a whole nother conversation. So I want to ask you this question, right? What are some of the key challenges? Because we're talking to leaders who are leading companies, right? We're talking about marketing, and what are some of the key challenges facing companies today?
So many options and a
Mm,
sense of a very overwhelmed customer,
mm,
generally speaking. And I was having this debate with someone last week,
mhm,
and they said to me, I don't actually think people are really busy. And I sort of looked at them and thought, okay, this is going to be an interesting angle. They
mhm,
said they're not really busy, they're overwhelmed. And there is a difference because they said if they were that busy, they wouldn't have enough time to scroll on their phones for an hour before they go to bed. And I thought it's probably pretty accurate and made me feel slightly guilty that that's probably um, probably where we all are. So it's that feeling of a very overwhelmed customer who, if you compare the life of many people today compared to, say, in the 1970s,
mhm,
there were other challenges in the 1970s, but this endless choice and information being thrown at them. And um, I think it's difficult for companies who then have to very much find that space within the customer mind so you actually stand out amongst this enormous amount of noise when, to your point earlier, attention spans are incredibly limited because
mhm,
everything is coming at you so quickly. So you have a
mhm,
sort of consumer that has 30 times the amount of information being thrown at them, far less time or interest to read. I mean, how many times now do we see an article and it says take 7 minutes to read it, and people go, "I'm not spending 7 minutes reading this.
mhm,
Summarize it for me."
mhm. Yeah,
And so
no,
it's difficult, and the more complex the product is, and the more time. So time, time with the customer, time to make yourself heard, time to get across your product is incredibly challenging because we all think, oh, that's a good idea. I want to look into that further as a customer. And then we
mm,
don't look at it again because something else is in our life and that suddenly takes precedent.
mm. I want to ask you about this challenge and we want to get your thoughts on it. What about digital transformation fatigue, right? And what I mean by
Mm.
that is um, overwhelmed by too many tech options, right? Struggling with cultural resistance. And then things change so quickly that sometimes um, the digital requirements to stay relevant, sometimes it's overwhelming. What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
I think it's very overwhelming. And I think the choice is also for businesses, what path do they go down?
Mm,
Because you have 10 paths you could go down digitally.
yeah.
And you have to choose the one that is cost effective and is going to stand the test of time, to come back to what we were talking about earlier. So there's so many fads. People were into one thing. Like, do you remember Angry Birds? If you go back a few years, Angry
Yeah.
Birds was the big thing. Everyone was playing it. Now,
Mhm,
I don't know anyone who's playing Angry Birds. So,
mhm,
so you have these things that come in and come out, and I think people are tired of digital. And I think the other thing people are missing, and I've noticed this since I set up my own business, is human contact.
yes.
Just talking to people, just seeing the world going by, just seeing what I could literally, if I wanted to, or if I wasn't disciplined enough not to, sit in
Mm,
this room for 40 hours a week facing a screen. And
mhm,
so now I have to force myself to get out, go for a walk, go for a run, talk to people, socialize more. And so the
mhm.
idea of, digital up to a point, surely, because once we start losing that people still buy from people. And I
Yes.
think we forget that at our peril, because
Mhm,
I don't really want to talk to a machine all day. I actually want a person talking to me who I can see, feel, react to, etc.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, Transformation Station community, Richard has been talking with us. This is like a master class right now. I want to invite you to really stop and assess how is this relevant to how you're leading to the goals your organization has and how you're able to reach your target audience, right? So, I want to ask you this question because you touched on AI earlier.
Mm.
Is AI a threat or an opportunity? And I know that this really is a real question that many leaders are having, right? Because you see AI in everything. But but is this one of those things that's going to be long term? Is it short term? Is it a threat, or do we need to go ahead and move towards it? So is it a threat or an opportunity?
Well, the obvious answer, and I'm going to say it, is it's both.
Okay.
Um, One thing I wouldn't say is that it's short term. This is a revolution. You have revolutions that come along every generation, like the Industrial Revolution,
Mhm.
um, et cetera, et cetera. Then we had sort of connectivity revolution with the internet coming in, and now we have AI. So this is not something that's going to not be here in the next 5 or 10 years. In fact, it will just develop
Interesting.
further.
Okay.
Where I see it being an opportunity is look at a profession such as the medical one. If you come to me and I'm a doctor and you say, "Hey, I need a knee operation," I could probably take a quick picture of that knee via AI if I wanted to, put it into a computer, and within 30 seconds, it would tell me exactly what the problem is, what needs to be done, how
Nice.
long the recovery time is, what's likely to be the outcome, etc.
Yes.
It could literally draw on any single knee operation that you need that's ever taken place and teach the doctor how to do it, or even do it on behalf of the doctor. So that's an incredible opportunity. And when you think of things like cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a doctor who can read a scan, let's say to 95% accuracy, well, if AI can read it to 99% accuracy with the doctor, so it could just add that extra 4%, then suddenly we're in a very transformative place in the world, aren't we? Right, where everything is getting better and easier. The threat, as far as I see it, though, is that it just runs our lives. And, there is a sort of dystopian view out there that in the end, what jobs are actually going to be needed? Let me give you an example of that. I was given a contract I do a lot of consulting,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was sent this rather complex contract the other day from a potential client. I just have to put it into AI and say, should I sign this document or not? And they came back and said, do not sign that document. Here are the 3 or 4 things you need to iron out. Now,
Wow.
previously, I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? Previously, I've had to go to an employment lawyer or a contract lawyer, paid, waited a couple of days, had a chat on the telephone. Now, this thing can do it for me in 45 seconds. So let me ask you, is that an opportunity? It is for me because I can be my own lawyer. Is it a threat? Well, if you've trained for 20 years in law and I'm saying, well, I can do this from my own home in 45
Yeah.
seconds,
Yeah.
that would make me feel quite uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, I was thinking as you were talking, right? So, AI as a threat, one of the perceived threats, right? Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but as we're talking about it, job displacement and skills, right? So, it really makes us as leaders, as professionals, really rethink what is important as far as the skill sets, and then how do we still leverage them, right? As an opportunity, though, we can see it as an opportunity for productivity gains.
Mm,
You
mm.
gave that classic example. You went, you put that information, it gave you information just like that, 45 seconds. You were able to be more productive quicker
Yeah.
than previously, right? So I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a both, right? It's a both. So let me ask you this question. With today's focus on digital and social platforms, what old school marketing principles still hold true and should it be ignored, right? How can we still utilize all the things that we've learned in the past um
Mm.
and not ignore them to still be able to move forward?
That great American business, Procter and Gamble, um, talked about marketing over 100 years ago, and the principle of marketing that we still have to identify who the right customers are. We have to be market orientated, i.e., we see life from the view of a consumer, not from our own view as someone who works for a company. That we have to target them, we have to get the messaging correct, we have to get the price correct, that it makes enough money for the business and yet provides perceived value for the consumer. The fact that our distribution channel, are we going direct to the consumer? Are we not? Are we going through a third party? Is someone else stocking our product? How are we going to promote it?
Mhm.
What does the customer journey look like? These are marketing lessons that have been around, brought to us by Procter and Gamble in brand management, by a chap called John McEnvoy. You should Google him,
Mhm.
because he sat in an office one day in your home country of the US and he wrote down saying, "This is what we need to do for a brand."
Mhm.
Those principles remain as relevant today as they were when he was in his office writing
Mhm.
them out. And the one, if I had to narrow it down to one, that the most important lesson in marketing is be market orientated. See the world from your customer's point of view. Let me give an example.
Mhm.
You talked earlier that you were talking to a congregation of people. You'll come away from that service and you will have a feeling of how it went. But the
Yes.
reality is the people on the other side of it will have a very different perception of how it went, for better or for worse, right? They may think it
Right.
was the greatest thing they'd ever heard, or they may think it wasn't. But you're biased. You don't see it. So
Right.
this podcast, it's very interesting. You and I will come off it and go, "Oh, that was good," or "It wasn't good," or "We covered this and we didn't cover that." The reality is, it's the people listening who are sitting
Mhm.
there or watching,
Mhm.
making their judgment on it. And I
Yes.
think if we lose that idea that we have to be market orientated, and market orientated means understanding what the market really thinks of us, for
Mhm.
better or for worse. That is the one principle in marketing. I cannot tell you how many meetings I've sat in and no one has mentioned the customer. No one has brought them to the
Wow.
table. And in marketing, we are the one function that can do that.
Mhm.
Finance won't do it. Procurement won't do it. Sales won't do it. Whatever department you want, HR won't do it. You can name all these departments. We are the
Mhm.
people that can bring in the customer. And I love the Amazon story, the Bezos story, where whenever he sits in a meeting, there is one empty chair, and it says that's the customer's chair. So the customer's in
Oh.
this meeting now. How would we be? Every single meeting in Amazon has to have this empty chair. That's
That's
market orientation, and it's powerful
that
because we
is
lose sight of the customer. But we have our own biases. We think we know best. We think, oh, this is what
Mhm.
they want.
Mhm.
Really?
Mhm.
Has anyone, oh, we give
Our perspective.
we give customers great experience. Do you? When was the last time you went out and spoke to them?
Mercy.
Mm,
Woo, I have to pause on that one. That's a serious masterclass right there. And to all of our leaders, I want to invite you right now. Tell us in the chat. Go ahead. I know that this is resonating with you because it's resonating deeply with me. Tell Richard and I in the chat exactly
mm.
right now. What are your thoughts? Share some of your own experiences as well, right? What are some tested and tried marketing from the past that still works today? One that you touched on earlier that I was thinking about as you were talking was this one. Word of mouth is still the most powerful marketing. Still the most powerful marketing, right? So leaders, encourage your clients to tell others and encourage them to share the story, right? Give them opportunities to leave reviews, to write comments, to wear the products, to send in pictures, whatever. But Richard talked earlier about that human experience. People still want that human element to be attached to your brand, to be attached to the experience, to be attached. It's so funny. Like this is like totally off topic, but I recently was on vacation and they had like a market fair, and I
Mm,
stopped at a table, and there was this lady who was she was crocheting like hats and scarves and everything, and I was looking at the table and I was not going to buy anything, but she came up to me, and the way she started talking was so approachable, and she started
mm,
talking to me like I just could not bear to walk away from that table without a hat and a glove set. And she began to
Mm,
tell me how she crocheted, and the love that she put into crocheting, and how this was such a special item. I ended up buying a hat and a glove set. Do you know that at the end of my
mm,
trip, I lost one of the gloves? You won't believe this. I was upset. I
mm,
was so upset
mm,
that I lost the glove, because to me, I felt like I had lost a piece of the experience that I had
mm.
with her. Yeah.
I totally get that. And, word of mouth is by a factor of 100 the most powerful marketing tool. Because we were talking before we started the podcast, and you said where you're based. I said London, and you're in Naples, in the most beautiful part of southern Italy. And my instinct is, oh, I really love Italian food, right? I just love it. If you said to me, hey, Richard, next time you're in Naples, it's only a 2-hour flight from London, there's the
Mhm,
most incredible restaurant here. You must try it. I'll
mhm,
email it to you. I guarantee one thing: when I'm next in Naples, that's the restaurant I'm going to. So
mhm,
they could
mhm,
have advertised to me, they could have put me on digital marketing, they could have emailed me. Nothing is as powerful as you saying to me, I'll email you their name, you must go there. It's just
So true. So true, so true, so true, so true. So this is food for thought, right? For all of us as leaders, many times we find ourselves struggling with how to plan the vision, but it's simple. A lot of it is really simple. And I love the illustration that you gave where you said, Jeff Bezos, they have the meeting and they have a
mm,
chair for the customer. Okay, so this is from our filter. What would that customer think and say? But also, how would the conversation be different if that customer was actually sitting in the room? That's powerful right there. I'm going to use that.
100%. Let me give you one other story because it's very, very recent. I went
Yes.
with my wife to a restaurant, and I know the chef, and he's like a Michelin star top chef. And he said, "Come to the restaurant next." It was last Friday, so almost a week ago. And he
Mhm,
said to me, "Have some brunch and
mhm,
sit at a counter." I posted about this on LinkedIn. Sit at the counter, and you're going to watch how the food is being made and prepared and cooked. Right? Okay, that'd be great. And we sat there for 4 hours, and I was mesmerized by it.
mhm.
And what I noticed, one, but I could talk to you about, we should have a separate podcast on lessons learned watching a
Yes.
Michelin chef making food. But
Yes.
the real lesson I learned was that someone's job was to check every single plate that went out before it went out. And 10% maybe of the plates were returned. The person checking said, no, not good enough. Change this, change that. And I said to the owner, I said to the chef, if you had served those to the customers, they would never know anything was wrong with it. And he said, no, but we would know. And he
Mm,
said, and once you start losing that standard and thinking, a customer won't notice, he said, you're dead. And I thought it
mm,
was a really interesting lesson in the importance of seeing it from a customer point of view and saying, even if they don't notice,
mm,
we know what we're doing is not good enough, not to our brand, not to our company, not to the quality, not to the
mm,
price we're charging, whatever it may be. I thought it's a
mm,
very poignant business lesson there. Was they may not know, but we
mm.
will. And eventually, the more we know, they'll know. And I thought
Yes.
it's a good one.
That's a very good one. Thank you so much for sharing that very relevant and practical illustration for us as leaders. Oh, I don't want the conversation to end, but listen, as we turn the corner on this conversation, Richard, I want to ask you this final question. What advice would you give to leaders, entrepreneurs trying to balance short term marketing results with building long term brand trust? Talk to us.
This is a good question. I love this question. Um, Look, when you are a leader or an entrepreneur, you're going to have to balance both the short term and the long term. If I come in and say, hey, I'll do your marketing for you, and I'm only going to get short term results, and then it's going to drift down, I'm probably not going to be employed by you very long. Equally, if I came to you and said, you're going to have to give me 3 or 4 years and I'll get you long term marketing results, you're going to say, I can't wait 3 or 4 years. So the reality is, you're going to need both. So focus on the short term initially, and that will allow you, once you have the credibility and the results start coming in to allow you to
Mm,
plan for the long term. So
mm,
I seriously say to people that I know, I do a lot of coaching for CMOs and CEOs, and I say to them, make sure you get results quickly because that will
mhm,
get your credibility up, that will get your confidence up, that will put money in your bank account to allow you to
mhm,
do the longer term stuff. I am a passionate believer in long term marketing.
mm,
One of the great principles of marketing is that certainly in B2B and products that are high consideration, like a car, you only
mhm.
purchase them once every 4 or 5 years. So
Correct.
95% of your target customers are out the market at any one point. So don't abandon that 95% just because they're not ready for you now. Same in my
Mm,
consulting career. I talk
mhm,
to customers all the time. They might be ready to use me in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years' time. But
mhm,
equally, I have to get the short term results because if I don't, I won't be here in 6 months' time. So it's that
mhm,
real commercial acumen that says focus on the short and don't forget the long, focus on
mhm,
the long and don't forget the short. And it
mm,
is the long and the short of it, not the long or the short of it. It's
mm.
both.
I feel really encouraged to ask you one more question. And it's not really a question, but I'm gonna ask you to really uh, sow into our community. There are leaders that are listening and watching right now that have connected with you and connected with what we've been talking about, and yet they're struggling because they're trying and not seeing results.
Mm.
Can you talk to those leaders who are struggling? They want to be successful with the marketing and the transformation that needs to happen, but they're struggling. What would you say to us?
Two things, if I may. One, and you touched on it earlier, is that simplicity is genius. Often I go into businesses and they say, this is the business plan, and it's so complicated, you would need a PhD in statistical analysis to understand any of it. So just keep things simple. If your strategy cannot be written on one side of a piece of paper, it's not a strategy that's going to work. So all the thinking behind it, or the work behind it, that's going to be complex. That's going to be multi-layered, multifaceted. But the actual strategy, keep it simple. Second bit of advice I would give, if I may, is when you're
Mhm,
launching a product, when you're in a product, you may have spotted a gap in the market, but is there a
mhm,
market in the gap? So you may say no one is doing this, but just
mhm,
have a look. Is there a reason nobody is doing it? And it may be because you can't make money doing it. It may be because people won't want it. It may be because it's too complicated. It may be it's just the wrong time. So
mm,
have that humility to say there's definitely a gap in the market, but is there really a market in the gap? The third
mm.
thing I'm going to do, if I may, and
Yes,
this is slightly unrehearsed, but hopefully
please.
you'll let me do it, is I write a newsletter which is called Ask Richard, and it goes out 2 or 3 times a month, and I encourage um, marketeers and business owners and to email me in with a question that's on their mind, and I just try and give 20 years of experience and respond to them, and I get 20 or 30 questions a month, and I try and pick the most relevant one for a wider audience. And I went out today and I said, look, I'm going to do this totally differently. There's a lot of businesses out there who want to do well and they're finding it difficult and they need a bit of strategic guidance. So if
Mhm,
anyone just emails me and says, look, could you just spend a day with me, an hour with me, 2 days with me, going over stuff? I'm not going to charge a penny for it. There's no obligation. You don't have to see me again if you don't wish to. But I just think there's something about giving back and something about helping each other out. So to anyone listening to this and watching that, I'm sure we'll go through what my contact details are.
mhm.
Please email me, tell me why you'd like it, and if I can get round to your business or I feel it's something I can add genuine value to, I'm really happy to spend some time with you going through where you're going right and where maybe we could improve stuff.
Amazing. This has been absolutely amazing masterclass. Absolutely amazing masterclass that we've had today. Thank you for adding so much value to Transformation Station. And as Brent mentioned, okay, so again, this is Richard's website. You heard the offer that he just blessed us with, where he said, if you have a question, you want some insight, if you contact him, he is willing to consult with you for free. So I want to invite you right now to do a couple things. Number one, the link is there on the screen. It's also in the description. contact Richard. Number one, before you even ask him for anything, let him know that you saw or heard this episode
Mm.
and let him know what resonated with you. And then ask him questions. Transformation Station, we believe the community that learns together grows together. We have a rich resource right here. So let's utilize it as well. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. This has absolutely been amazing. It's been great to have you with us. Thank you.
Anytime. And truly, it's been a real pleasure. So back to you. Can I just say thank you for inviting me on and having such a wonderful conversation?
Thank you so much, so much. And I'm sure we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, what an amazing conversation. And I mean that genuinely. I've learned so much. I have to go back and watch this on the replay. If today's conversation sparked new ideas, challenged some of your old assumptions, or reminded you why great marketing is really great leadership in disguise, then I want you to be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday or a Wednesday episode. And as a matter of fact, it's not just about you, it's about community. So share this episode with 3 colleagues who are ready to elevate their thinking and to connect with us, Transformation Station Leadership Podcast, to keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, keep transforming boldly, and keep on leveling up.